And I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who made a wonderful service happen last week. Cynthia, thank you for a wonderful, uplifting, and inspiring message, spur of the moment. And to the children, I saw Kathy here a few minutes ago who contributed their energy and their special vibe. So I want to start with a question. I want to know what your preference is, the Atlanta Falcons or the New Orleans Saints? Oh, nobody cares. Okay, well, how about cool jazz or hard rock? Hard rock, cool jazz, okay. How about Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi? Both. How about vegetarian or carnivore? Vegetarian. You all have an opinion. Early morning or late night? Late night. Hot tea or iced tea? Hot tea. East Coast or West Coast? East Coast. That was a no-brainer. Here we are in Georgia. The ocean or the mountains? The mountains. Oh, a little indecisive there, huh? Now, we could go on and on all day long because we have our opinions about all of these things. Now, I only gave you two choices, but we know when it comes to the terrain, there's a multitude of terrain that we could love and enjoy and savor. There are many sports teams that we could choose from. I just gave you two choices. Our opinions exist. We have an opinion about everything, right? We have our perspective. We have our viewpoint. We have our preferences. Even over our life experiences, we all have an opinion. So I wonder how far we are willing to go to uphold and defend our perspective, our opinions. How exciting and demonstrative we will become over our viewpoints when they're challenged. And how willing we are to make room for somebody else's opinion, perspective, or preference. Or even listen to another person. Before we become defensive, agitated, or argumentative. How willing are we? Now, perhaps we will find it easy to listen to others' perspectives when we're talking about iced tea or hot tea or oceans or mountains. That's easy because it doesn't really impact our life. It doesn't have a critical impact on us. It might be easy to talk about our favorite sports teams, yet I hear a lot of shouting. I hear a little bit of name calling, and I know bets are made over that very topic, your favorite sports team. But making room for others' opinions, perspectives, and preferences may be easier when our life doesn't have to change or isn't altered by another person's viewpoint. Yet when we practice allowing space for others in these seemingly small or insignificant things, we develop a habit of listening, of hearing for the purpose of hearing, not for replying, just for the joy of hearing what someone else has to say, what somebody else has as their ideas. And from that, we develop a pattern for respecting a multitude of perspectives and ideas. Then, hopefully, when it comes to these bigger topics, We have an established way of living our life, that it is open-minded, that we create space and make room for possibilities other than our own. Steve talked about this when he delivered a message a few months ago. That was the beginner's mind. And with that beginner's mind, there are endless possibilities. When we move into our expert mind, there's only our possibility because we're the expert. We know all of it about the topic. We don't have room for more. So growing in this way of allowing, at least for hearing other people, their opinions, their viewpoints, it causes us to not overreact. Or maybe not even react, maybe just to take it in. Take it in and find that morsel of truth that is in somebody else's opinion. When we talk about housing and homelessness, when we talk about livable wages, border control, gun ownership, women's rights to choose, human trafficking, everybody has an opinion. What is wrong and what is right. You might have even noticed that your feelings start to engage, as I even mention, the topics, to what you hold in mind. And when we speak and live into our fifth unity principle, it calls us to engage all of the unity principles. We can't live our truth without engaging all of our principles. That fifth principle we just spoke of, it's not enough to know the truth. We must live it. This is our call to action, our call to move, be, and do. It's not about burying our head in the sand. When we talk about people who have no homes and to say that, oh, they're living their journey, that's what their path is in this life, we're not to interfere with their path. Instead, we're called to consider what is ours to do. To do otherwise is what we call metaphysical malpractice. People may have chosen to live a certain life, and it's a call to us, to how we are going to be in our world, how we are going to serve in our world. And what am I to do in service to others, to live that principle, to live God's presence as you and I move about our world? Unity of Augusta has added to the recitation of that fifth principle something that is very meaningful and beautiful in loving service to our world. So how are you lovingly serving? No answer required. Just think about that. How are you lovingly serving? And when we look at countries experiencing internal conflict and civil war, civil unrest, we think of Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Sudan, Libya, Syria. There's many countries that are experiencing internal conflict. It seems to be all the way over there. So we're not personally impacted in our daily life, are we? It's a war. It's unrest. It's disorder across the world. So what is ours to do? What is ours to do? And then when we think about Russia and Ukraine, when we think about Israel and Palestine and Hamas, it gets a little closer, maybe? What is ours to do? I believe we might begin by examining our feelings that rise and fall, and look closely at not who is right, not what side is right, but what action is right. How can we live the truth we know? God is present even when it feels and appears that there's an absence of God in any moment. Maybe it feels like there's an absence of that divine presence in the midst of these wars. It might require some serious contemplation, some significant time in the silence. It might require that we turn off the news and the radio and cease the sound bites. How can we live the truth we know by and recognize the divinity in the attackers and the attacked, in the oppressor and in the oppressed? How can we do that? We're not going to do that engaged in the world. We're not going to be able to do that with our radios and televisions on, with the news bombarding us all day. Romans 8:28 reminds me, judge not, so that I am not judged. This doesn't mean in any way that I refrain from my power and ability of discernment. It means I refrain from judgmental ideas that the conflicts of the world have to be resolved in the way I believe they have to be resolved. That things have to unfold the way I think they should. That's judgmental. But we use our wisdom and discernment. Philippians 2:4 says, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but to the interests of others. Look outside ourselves for a different perspective. Matthew 11:15 says, he who has ears to hear, let them hear. What are we allowing into our thoughts? What are we allowing into our mind to create our thoughts? What information are we allowing? And then Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself. Think beyond our own needs and desires and wants. To live the truth we know is to be mindful of the thoughts and the feelings, the opinions, and even the judgments that rise, because we have them. We have them. And as Cynthia said last week, check our heart. Check our heart, the pureness of our heart. I become mindful when I'm moving it as I exercise my power of dominion, that power that we were given over, over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, which represent our thoughts. We're given dominion over our thoughts. We are the only ones that can control and be in charge of our thoughts. We are the only ones that can change them and mold them and shift them. Nobody else can do that. We do that for ourselves. Notice I don't have to speak my thoughts. I do not deny my thoughts. I allow them to be because they are real vibrations and energy. I allow them, I check them, I evaluate them for their purity, for their inspiration from the divine, not from my ego or any other source. I just don't need to dump my thoughts all over the world. I don't need to dump my opinions everywhere. There's no need for that. And when I take command of myself, I choose what I contribute to my world. To that consciousness of the collective, I choose what I contribute. It's not random, it's not by chance. I'm consciously contributing. I have opinions, and I hope that you can't tell what they are. It's through this talk. I hope that you don't know what I think. Because I'm not here to say what to think, but to think for ourselves. Think from that divine inspiration that's within us. We talked about that this morning in the Sunday school. Every single person has the ability to discern for self. Every one of us are endowed with that wisdom and knowledge. Whatever opinion I hold about Russia and Ukraine, or Israel and Palestine, the solution is way bigger than me. It's very much larger than me. So no criticism, no endorsement of either side that I have is really going to make a difference, is it? I can taint the thinking. I can influence the thinking of others. That's about all. So what is mine to do to live the truth I know? Again, moving from that place of who is right and who is wrong to what is right. What's right for you to hold in this experience of the world raging against itself? Remembering that I am in the world, but I am not of the world. So in that moment that we might think that God is absent, we have the power to behave according to our free will. We are all given that spark of divinity. We acknowledged that in each other in this room just moments ago. And that same spark is in every person on the planet. Every person. Not everyone is living from that remembrance of their divinity. So we have awful things happening in our world. I have to remember that God is present, even when my human eyes see something different and my ears hear something different. I am in the world, but not of the world. I am living this human experience, yet I am a spiritual being, first and foremost, as we all are. I remember that divinity in all beings, those who are acting from their divine and those who are acting from what is not their divine. I remember that prayer changes things. So don't underestimate the power of your prayers. Don't underestimate the energy that you put into that collective consciousness, that you put out into the world, in the space that you influence. And if you influence your space and those around you, we spread that influence. So choose that prayer. And for me, a really big deal is that contribution to the consciousness of the collective. In Tuesday's book study, The Map of Consciousness Explained, we speak from the belief that our thoughts and feelings are energy. They have a frequency and a vibration that goes out from us. Every one of us have walked into a room and felt a certain vibe. Maybe it was a heavy vibe over here in the corner and we saw somebody who looked very sad and heavy. That energy of thoughts emanates from us. Thoughts are things with a vibrational frequency. There are thoughts that are on a lower scale of vibration. We probably can guess what those thoughts are. And then there are thoughts that are on a higher vibrational frequency, and you can probably guess what they are. And then there's a threshold between those low vibrational thoughts and those high vibrational thoughts. And Steve, would you change the slide? You can see on that bottom part of the screen that there is anxiety, anger, aggression, fear, and blame. And every one of us has felt all of those things, right? So how does your body feel when you're feeling fear? You're not buoyant. You probably feel dense and heavy. And then there's this line across the threshold, the vibration of courage. And that's the vibration that invites us to move out of anxiety, anger, fear, and blaming, and move our feelings and our thoughts to a higher vibration. It takes courage to do that. There's an invitation in that, but it also takes courage to do the work to shift and change the thoughts we're holding to thoughts of forgiveness. Thoughts of a forgiveness for the attacker, the oppressor, the one we perceive as wrong, whoever that might be, in whatever experience. Acceptance, which is not saying that something is good, it's saying that this is what is. When we come to a place of acceptance of what is happening in our life or in our world, then we can do more about it. If we're resisting it and denying it, we can't change it. We can't shift it. And we move into understanding. And that's a spiritual understanding of our power in it. And then we move to that vibration of love. And all of these four, forgiveness, acceptance, understanding, and love, vibrate at the higher frequency above 200. And so the invitation is to live above the line. And notice when you're going throughout your day, when you're feeling anxious, acknowledge that. If you can't stop at that moment to massage that anxiety into something above the line, make an appointment with yourself later in the day to sit and nurture yourself from anxiety into something else. If you notice you're feeling anger, take a breath within. What's stirring that anger? What's stirring that feeling of aggression? What's causing me to blame somebody else outside of me for what's happening in me? Notice that fear. We don't ignore those feelings, but we can nurture them, we can shift them and change them into above the line. We have to choose to live above the line. Remember a couple of weeks ago we said there are 4 basic emotions that we feel: fear, sadness, anger, 3 negative feelings. So there's 3 feelings that will draw us below courage, that will draw us below the 200, really low the threshold. And there's one. What's the one that lifts us above the line? Happiness. And you can shift what's in us. It takes courage. It takes bravery. And this living above the line impacts our life. It impacts what we experience throughout our days. And as it impacts us, we impact every space we move in. Every space. In your home, when you're living above the line and you're feeling acceptance and love, that's what you're feeling your home with. When you go into your space of work, when you're feeling love, you're spreading that in your space of work. When you're at the grocery store, everywhere you go, everything you do. We have the ability, and dare I say, the responsibility to live above the line. We all have the capacity to do that because we have all been given dominion over ourselves, over the thoughts we think, the words we speak, the actions that we take. So I close with these words from Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for in the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Let those words inspire you this week. And as always, we remember 1 Corinthians 16:14. Let all you do be done with love. Namaste.